friends, welcome back. Today I will continue with the previous discussion about interpersonal relationships. So today I will talk about social relationships. Previously we discussed about that how interrelationships are formed based on attraction, similarity, liking and mutuality. But what is the outcome of all these aspects of interaction? It actually leads to social relationships. That means when any individual who has a desire to satisfy his sense of belongingness, then the person also tries to move forward to establish a strong bonding with the other person in the group. And this is termed as social relationship, which is formed in groups and involves more than liking, that is care and love, and sometimes it leads to intimacy. For example, between two friends, between siblings, between close associates or even couples who are engaged in love. So, this is how when we are talking about social relationships, then Levinger and Snock also has proposed a very simple framework that how interaction in any new environment transforms to social relationships while going through different kind of stages of interaction and attraction. This is the model where Levinger and Snock has talked about three levels of social relationships. The first is the zero contact, where two people are completely unrelated to each other. They have no awareness about each other, they have no information or knowledge about each other, they have no information about the goals that what they want to achieve. But when they are coming into interaction with each other, then they are actually having an approach that how to interact and how to exchange information with each other. So, as soon as a zero contact where two people are unrelated, there is probability that two people will actually approach each other and there will be a kind of awareness in that environment, and that awareness will lead to acquaintance and attraction. Now, this awareness is that there is some level of similarity in the attitudes, they form impression about each other that is fitting in each other's model. What I think the person should be and what the other person think that I should be fitting in that model, this is the first stage, that is awareness, where unilateral attitudes are there and we form some impression fitting in each other model, and although the interaction is not very intense, but there is some kind of interaction which leads to some kind of attraction, acquaintance and at the same time some kind of contentedness or affiliation. As soon as this awareness is been increased, it leads to surface contact where attitudes become bilateral. Here bilateral attitudes means that people tend to exchange information, bits and pieces of information to each other, and how they extend those interactions based on the knowledge they possess. That means exchanging information with each other and enhancing their skills and interaction. So, as soon as there is some kind of similarity in the attitudes, two people who are engaged in a particular interaction is then transformed to a sense of affiliation. That means they try to build up relationship. Initially it was neutral, then there was some kind of approach leading to acquaintance and attraction, and in the next stage it leads to affiliation towards building a relationship. Now, as soon as the surface contact also becomes mature, it actually leads to the final stage of any social relationship, that is mutuality, which is a continuum. That means once affiliation is been established between two people, there is a continuity of exchange of information, there is continuity in having or developing similar attitudes, and most importantly they develop common goals to achieve all together. That means they have empathy, they have understanding, they have mutual trust based on sharing information. So, as soon as mutuality is being achieved, there is actually a sense of attachment. They try to relate to each other not only based on knowledge, but also the emotional basis also becomes very strong. So, this is how the level of relationship can reach to the level of mutuality. Now, this level of mutuality also has its three levels of transformation, that even two people are related to each other, then in what manner and to what extent that intersection or continuation will take place. Now, as soon as the two people reaches the stage of mutuality or continuum or sense of attachment, they also experience some kind of transformation. So, this transformation is minor intersection. That means attachment is there, but two people are trying to come more close to each other. They are making efforts to become more intimate and mutual. Once this stage is also crossed, it also leads to major intersection, where there is maximum times they are similar in every opinion, every belief and every idea. That means their efforts are being collaborated to achieve the common goal. And the last is total unity, where they have a strong sense of identity because of each other. So, that means they have merged in within themselves and with the other person based on their knowledge, based on their sharing experiences, and most importantly on basis of emotions. So, when we are talking about mutuality and that too total unity, it is actually a state of consolidation, continuation, mutual trust, secured attachment, and actually it maintains balance, cooperation, mutuality, and finally intimacy. So, when we are talking about social relationships leading to intimacy or mutuality, it actually again transforms two people to a different level. That means to a higher level of relationship, how two people can become more close, more intimate and more mutual. Next comes that when total unity has been experienced by two people and they are becoming mutual and intimate, then what are the other factors that promote each other, the connection between the two? So, social psychologists have talked about three factors that promote intimacy, and that too in a particular social relationship. It is mutuality, self disclosure, shared activities and interdependence. So, when we are talking about intimacy, it is a close, familiar, affectionate, personal relationship with the other person. That means the relationship is pro-social in nature. That means they are helping the other person without any expectation. No doubt there is altruism, there is reciprocal altruism as well, but they are more eager and keen to help their partners. There is a close association with a detailed knowledge or deeper understanding of the other person's attitude, beliefs, values and ideas. So, this is how, that means when people are more empathetic towards each other, two people, and their understanding about their beliefs, ideas, emotions and values, then there is a complete unity and that creates intimacy. So, how that intimacy is determined? It is determined based on three factors. The first is mutuality. This involves the belief that the other person is trustworthy, dependable and reliable. We can only trust other person or we can only be mutual towards other person when we understand, when we have deep understanding of the other person's attitude that he or she is trustworthy and dependable. So, people take account of each other's feelings and desires and the relationship is pro-social. That means there are moral and social constraints as well, that in what manner a relationship should continue, and at the same time they are more keen to help their partners. The other is self-disclosure. This is very basic to any social relationship. How? That when we are keen to share our feelings and emotions and knowledge with the other person, then the other person also reciprocate in the similar fashion. So, the more we are disclosing ourselves, the more the other person will be encouraged to disclose more information with us. So, this actually encourages mutuality and the relationship becomes very strong, because when we are sharing the information and the other person is understanding our sense of sharing, then the other person also reciprocates in the same way and this leads to empathy between two people. So, self disclosure is the most important aspect in any social relationship. If two people, although they are mutual, they are intimate, but if one party tries to withhold certain information at one point of time in the relationship, then the relationship will start ceasing to exist. The deterioration will start taking place. So, self disclosure is very important. And the last is shared activities and interdependence. This is like how we influence each other while engaging in joint activities, that means when we have common goal, then how we engage in joint efforts to achieve that goal, that is shared activities, and that provide reinforcement and better opportunities to interact and achieve the common goals. So, when we are talking about sharing knowledge, it also extends to sharing activities and interdependence. It is not only about independency, it is actually about interdependence, that when there is more sharing, then there is more sharing of ideas, beliefs and emotions, then actually they are becoming dependent on the other person, because goals are common and attitudes are common. So, it encourages more interactions. So, this is how social relationships are being established. So, we can say that when social relationships are being established, I will go back to the slide again. It is one of the most important aspect of an individual's social life, and one can experience the pleasure of being in a social relationship while respecting his or her own boundaries, and at the same time maintaining the moral and ethical standards based on mutuality, trust and sharing activities. So, this is how we can say that when we are talking about social relationships, it starts from interpersonal attraction, and how every attraction leads to another stage of relationship in terms of friendship, in terms of liking, in terms of mutuality, and finally there is a point where two people decide to establish a strong relationship based on certain factors. So, this is how we can say that how social relationship can be promoted to mutuality and intimacy. This is one aspect of social relationship, that how social relationship can be established. Now, the other aspect is that when we are talking about group dynamics, then so many members are there in a group, then how to understand the level and quality of relationship or social relationships among the group members. So, there has to be some approach where we can define the relationship of one person with the other person or other members in a very precise manner. Now, that requires some kind of mapping of the relationships, where we can say in a very precise manner and clear manner that how one member is related to the other person and how the other members of the group are liking or disliking one particular member. Now, this we cannot identify based on our day-to-day life interactions in the group. There has to be an approach, there has to be some methodology where we are saying that this is how we can chart out the liking, disliking or repulsion or acceptance of a particular member within the group. For that, to understand that issue, social psychologists have laid down a very important measurement issues in social relationship. For that measurement issue, J.L. Moreno in the year 1934 coined the term sociometry to understand the quality of relationship among the members. Now, that quality and the level of relationships has been studied by J.L. Moreno through mapping of the relationships in terms of attraction, acceptance, rejection, dyad, triad. There are several levels of relationship that exist within the group, and how to identify each level of relationship. So, J.L. Moreno has coined this term sociometry, which was later on expanded in terms of matrices as well. That means, sociogram is been created based on diagrammatic representation of the relationship of the group members. So, let us first define that what is sociometry when it comes to measurement issue of social relationships. Sociometry can be defined as a technique for mapping the relationship of attraction and rejection among members of a group. A likes B, B likes C, but C does not like B or A. A, B and C can form one subgroup within the group itself. Maybe A and H are more attracted to each other. Now, all these kind of relationships do exist in the group itself, but how to map them? In day-to-day life, it is not very easy to understand, but if you bring those relationships through mapping, then definitely we can identify the structure, the social structure of the group, the hidden structures, that from where and how some conflicts are evolving within the group and how it can be resolved. So, based on sociometry, we can say that it is a method of studying interpersonal relations among members of the group, expressed in terms of choice, communication, attraction, indifferences and patterns of interaction among individuals in the group. And the result of this pattern can be represented in the form of sociogram. It is a diagrammatic representation of a social relationship on paper. That is the most practical approach to understand human relationships. So, sociometric explorations reveal hidden structures that give groups its form in terms of cliques. That means, in a group of 50 members, maybe 2 members or 3 members are very close to each other and they will not allow other members that should interact with them so deeply. So, they will form their own subgroup, which in social psychology is termed as a clique. That means, in the terms of cliques or alliances, dyad, triad and even an isolate. Dyad when 2 people form their group, triad when 3 people form their group, or it can be an isolate where the person is least preferred to interact with him or her, or maybe the isolate person is not liking the other person to interact with. So, J.L. Marino has identified several structures within the group interaction, that how people interact with each other in what manner. So, if I talk about sociometry based on the diagrammatic representation on this slide, we can see so many members identified as A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. All these alphabets are the members on this slide right now, and we can identify that A is the most liked person. That means, we can say A is the hero in the group, because all the members are liking this person, whereas a clique is also existing in this group, where A, B and C, D, A, B, C and D, they are having a very close knitted group, subgroup within the group itself, and they are not allowing other members to interact with them. So, they are forming a clique, there is an alliance, they are closely knitted with each other, the interactions are very close and intimate. So, they form a clique within the group itself, that is A, B, C and D. Now, within the group itself, there is a triad as well, where F, E, F and G, they form a triad. They 3 are attracted to each other, the 3 like each other a lot, and there is a close interaction between these 3 members E, F and G, they form a triad. At the same time, I and J, they form a dyad. That means, they no doubt everybody is interacting with each other, but inclination is very high towards a particular person or members. So, if I say about I and J, they are forming a dyad. They are very close to each other, they like each other a lot and they are interacting to the maximum with each other. This is a dyad, where H is an isolate. Either members are not liking him, or maybe sometimes due to some other factors within the group itself, maybe H is not preferring to interact with every members in every point of time. This is how the relationships can be defined. Now, the interesting part is that we can see that there are other 2 characters in the or members in the group itself, C and D. Now, here C and D in grayish blue, C is responding to D, that means C is having preference to interact with D, but D is not interested in talking to C, in interacting with C with the dashed arrow, which indicates that C is attracted to D, but D is not showing any interest in interacting with C. Similarly, C is very much interested in interacting with G, but the G member is not very much interacting with character C. That means, the choice is unreciprocated. Earlier it is like 2 members I and J, they are attracted to each other, they are in reciprocal altruism or reciprocal behavior, exhibiting reciprocal behavior. But when it comes to C and G and C and D, the choice is unreciprocal. That means, the choice is negative, maybe D is not liking C or maybe G is also not liking C, but C is more interested in talking to D and G members of the group. So, that means the choices are negative or the choices is unreciprocated. So, this is how the hidden structure of the social relationship among the group members we can decipher very clearly, and this indicates sociometry or sociogram, because we are trying to explore every relationship with each member in a very precise manner based on arrows. So, this is how this sociogram is helpful in defining social relationships among group members. Now, this is one aspect of sociometry, that based on sociogram or the whole relationship can be deciphered in a very precise manner. The other way out is another sociograms. Now, in this sociogram, this is more elaborative in the form of certain factors, that in this they have talked about male and female members as well, that to what extent and in what manner male members are interacting to female or vice versa, or in what manner among female members or male members what type of relationship exists among each other. So, if we have a closer look on this diagram, we will find on the sociogram that based on the arrows, the choices are positive, they are negative, they are mutual, and they are non-reciprocal as well. So, again when we are talking about sociogram, there can be different ways to explore relationships based on the purpose, that in what manner and in how the number of size of the group will expand based on the relationship. It can be based on age also, it can be based on gender also, and sometimes it can be based on geographical locations and work experiences, because sometimes in organizations what happens within the team and group itself, there are chances that maybe generation difference will exist and interaction will lead to some conflicts, or the interaction becomes very much distorted. So, all these factors play a major role, that how that relationship can be explored in a very explicit manner. So, this is how sociogram can be used in a very explicit manner depending on the purpose to study the relationship. Next is sociometric matrices. This is another way where we are giving scores to the choices and preferences and like and dislikes about each other member, that how and to what extent one member is preferred to work with in how much percentage or times. So, if we talk about the sociometric matrices, we will understand that A prefers to work with B and E. We can see here B prefers to interact or work with A and E. C prefers to work with D and E. D prefers to work with B and E, and last E prefers to work with A, B. So, the preferences has been identified in the matrix based on 0 and 1. 0 is disliking and 1 is liking. So, based on this we can easily calculate the choices that every member has received by every member. So, based summing up the choices, we can easily understand based on this matrices that A has received 2 choices, B has received 3 choices, C has not received any choice, D has received 1 and E has received 4. So, based on the summing up of the choices, we can easily understand that E is the most likable person in the group, and then follows B. So, based on this matrix, we can easily understand that to what extent and in what percentage every member is preferred by which member. This is sociometric matrices. Now, this also has some advanced form in terms of choice matrix, where choices are given, but in what manner, that means positive or negative. If I talk about, if I go to just the previous one, this sample sociograms, here the choices are positive and negative, right, and we will simply understand. But in this choice matrix, we will identify that one person has got how many positive choices and how many negative choices, because sometimes there are reasons that some situations will create preference for one person, and maybe for the same person in the another situation the preference will vary. So, if we talk about this sociometric choice matrix, then again it is something where plus and minus signs are indicated based on choices. For example, if I say that A has given B, A has given B a positive choice and D, E and F, they have given a negative choice to their group member, that is B. Similarly, B has given a choice to A, E, F and G. Now, when we are calculating these choices based on positive and negative out of total choices, then we will say that A has received one choice and A has received two negative choices. That means, based on their behavioral dispositions, to what extent members are being liked or disliked. And out of this positive and negative choices, what are the total choices that have been received? So, total choices received by A is 3, where one person has preferred and the other two members have not preferred to work with. Based on this, we can easily understand, for example, that D has got the maximum choices, that is 5 choices, and plus choices is 5. So, that means D is the most preferred person to work with in the group. So, on these indicators, the relationships can be easily understood by the members, and how team and team roles can be identified very easily, because when we are working all together towards the common goal, then that there has to be a smooth and effective functioning of the group members. So, understanding the relationship among all the members will help us to decide and allocate all the roles and resources to each member of the group. So, this is how we try to identify, we try to infer, we try to decipher social relationships among members. Next comes merits and demerits of sociometry. Now, definitely when any method has been proposed by any psychologist, then it carries some demerits as well. But let us talk about the positive aspects of sociometry. The first is that it is useful in understanding the interpersonal relationships among group members. That is the most obvious purpose of sociometry. It is useful in understanding the group structure, that is to what extent the group is stable and unstable. Sometimes what happens, every member is giving only one choice to work with, right, and there is no other choice for any member. This simply shows that the structure of the social structure of the group is very weak. People are not interacting much with each other, or they are not making much efforts to make the relationship strong to work upon. So, this identifies that based on the choice matrix or arrows, that what is the strength of any group relationship. The other is, it is useful in studying group effectiveness in terms of productivity and performance. The more people have choices for each other, the more people are preferring to work together towards the common goal, and this enhances productivity, it enhances performances. The other is that it is useful in understanding the social structure of a group in terms of values, beliefs, stereotypes and prejudice. That means, the more people are giving choices to each other, the more they are identifying with each other in terms of beliefs, ideas and opinions, and at the same time, the most important thing is that they tend to dissolve all the stereotypical attitudes and prejudice about each other, and they try to identify themselves at the common ground. This is the most important benefit of applying sociometry in group dynamics. The other is, it helps in gauging counterproductive work behavior such as distrust, bullying or antagonism. That means, when people are expressing their choices to work with, then they are actually also creating a comfort zone for themselves with whom they are comfortable to work with, and in that situation they curb the tendency of counterproductive work behaviors, where there are less arguments, there are less conflicts, there are less negative dispositions of behavior in terms of bullying or hostility, aggression or anger. The other is that it helps groups with team building without breaking confidentiality. The more we are able to understand the quality of relationship among members, the more we can build up trust. We can identify people with whom that a person is comfortable to work with which member, and more people can maintain the confidence and confidentiality with each other. The other is it can be used for group therapy in various settings such as schools, military, business settings and corporate training. Now, all these all these examples are workspaces where group exist, and when group exists then definitely conflicts also exist, and at the same time large patterns of interactions also exist. So, how to resolve and dissolve those interactions can only be possible when we can implement this approach of sociometry. So, these are the advantages. At the same time, there are certain demerits also, that first of all, it does not promote intensive study for analyzing relationship, because it is giving a pictorial representation of the relationships, where sometimes some external factors also exist while evaluating or giving choices about other group members, and at the same time some situational factors also exist. So, there is no reliability, but at the same time pictorial representation will give a framework that where the group is heading on. So, this is the demerit, and the most important aspect of demerit is that there are statistical limitations to inferring relationships among group members. We have indicators in terms of plus minus, we have indicators in terms of preferences like 1, 0 and 1, maybe it is binary, but we do not have any statistical application to identify that whenever we are measuring the relationships between two people or among group members, that identification is very much reliable. That means that whenever we are trying to gauge the relationship, then maybe we are getting the same picture of relationship. So, this lacks statistical flavor to implement this approach of sociometry, but in any case when we are talking about social psychology, then definitely behavior is also instrumental and any situation is also instrumental. Moment to moment situations are changing, and moment to moment people try to handle those situations in a different manner. So, interactions also vary from person to person, but yes, when we are talking about measurement issues in social relationships, then sociometry plays a very important role, where we are trying to identify our perception for the other person within the group itself. So, this is how social relationships can be understood based on sociometry. So, we are through with this module. Thank you so much.